Okay, for this lab assignment, uh, we'll be we'll be creating these three shapes here: the square, a triangle pointing up, and a triangle pointing down. We'll also be using C++ and nested for loops to do this. Okay, so to start a project in Visual Studio, we'll go ahead and open it up. It's Visual Studio, and then you're going to go to File, New, then Project, and then under Visual C++, we need Win32. Then make sure you have Win32 console application checked. We're going to name this project, we can name it Shape Project. Once you have that typed in there, then press OK. Then you'll get this Win32 application wizard. From here, we're going to go to Application Settings. Then we go to Empty Project. Once that's checked, then hit the Finish button. And then from here, we'll have an empty project, so we'll need to add a source code file. To do that, go to Source Files, right-click, Add, then go to New Item. Then make sure you have C++ file.cpp selected, and we'll name this CPP file, we'll name it main, and then hit Add. And then now you'll have a blank source code file that we can start typing in. Whenever you create a C++ program, you're going to need three things. First, you'll need to include the IOStream directive. To do that, you're going to do include. So go ahead and type pound include IOStream. We're going to need the standard namespace. So to add that, you're going to do using namespace std, then semicolon, and then the last thing we need is going to be the main function. So in this case, our main function won't return a value, so we need to type void for the return type, main, open parentheses, close parentheses. Then we need to open a curly brace and then enter a couple times, and then we need to close the curly brace. Okay, we can test our compiler and Visual Studio by printing out a simple statement to the screen. To do that, we're going to type cout. You're going to type cout. Then you're going to type the stream insertion operator, which is going to be a less than, double less than. Then whenever you type a string to the screen, you need to put it in double quotes. So in double quotes, and then inside that we'll type something like hello world. Then we can also do another stream insertion operator, and then we can type the words ENDL for inline. And then whenever you type a statement in C++, you need to terminate it with a semicolon, similar to writing a regular sentence where you put a period. And then once you have that typed out, then we can go ahead and compile this code so we can actually see the words printed to the screen. To do that, you're going to press simultaneously Control F5, and then that should bring up your console screen, and it'll run the statement. In this case, we only had one, and it says hello world on it. Okay, so to begin our assignment, let's go ahead and close this out, and we can go ahead and delete this line here. We're going to need to learn how to use a for loop. Now, the for loop has this syntax here. You type for, then you type your variable initialization, then you need to test that variable, and then you need to update it. And then inside the for loop, these statements will run. As long as this test here is true, then the statements inside the loop will continue to run. The initialization variable will be updated here in this section. So here's an example. We create our variable called count, and that count starts at 0. So while count is less than 5, then we execute the statements in this line here. So then count changes once the statement finishes. It's incremented by 1. This is what this count plus plus means. So then count becomes 1. 1 is less than 5. So then the statement runs again. Then it keeps going to 2. 2 is less than 5. So then the statement will run. Once count reaches 5, 5 is not less than 5. So then this loop will stop running. Okay, we can test this code real quick. So I'm just going to copy it. I'm going to paste it here into my main function. I'm going to paste it. The formatting looks a little weird. Let me fix that real quick. Okay, so it should look something like this. So then if I do Control F5 again, then you'll see we have 0, 1, 2, 3, and then 4. Once it reached 5, the statement no longer runs. Okay, so let's go ahead and get rid of this, just so you could see an example. Delete this information here. Okay, so we'll start the square shape first. So let's bring up our syntax. It's right here. So we'll need to type for, then our initialization variable. So in this case, we'll call ours int star. Move this off to the side a bit. Star, and then we'll set it equal to 0. Then semicolon. Then while star is less than 5, semicolon. While star is less than 5, then we want to increment star. We want to update it by 1. So then we have our three things here. We have the initialization, which is star equals 0, the test condition, which is star is less than 5, and then we want star plus plus, or star plus 1. Then we close the parentheses. We open our curly brace, go ahead and close the curly brace here. Then inside we need our statement. So our statement in this case will be cout for console out, the stream insertion operator, then our string, which is in double quotes, and in this case we'll use asterisks, so 1 asterisk. Once you have that, go ahead and terminate the statement with a semicolon. Once this loop finishes, then we want to insert a new line. So to do that, we do that outside the loop at cout stream insertion, then ind L, which stands for inline, ind L, and then semicolon. Okay, so we can get rid of this. Now let's compile this and see what it does. So Control F5. And as you see, this isn't really quite a square. We have the 5 asterisks in the loop, and then once the loop finishes, then we have an inline here. So let's try. So this is where we're going to need another loop around this information to get the square. So let me go ahead and close this out. Now we need a loop for all of this. We need to loop this for loop 5 times. So to do that, just put a space there. Then we do 4 on top. And then this loop, we'll call it this initialization variable. Well, let me bring up my syntax. We'll call this int for the data type. We'll do row equals 0. Our test condition will be while row is less than 5, and we want to update row plus 1. So plus plus. Close the parentheses. Then we open a curly brace. And then after everything else at the very end of this the other for loop, then we do another curly brace. And press enter. And then here we can select the inner for loop and press tab, so that way it's a little easier to see that this loop is on the outside and this loop is on the inside. Okay, so then now let's compile this and see what it does. Control F5, and now we have our square. So the loop runs initially the first time, the outside loop, prints out 5 asterisks using this loop. Actually, let me put that there. I can lock that in place. Okay. So then once the first 5 asterisks are printed, then we go to the inline. Then the outer loop runs again. This time row is incremented to 1. 1 is less than 5. So then this loop will run. Once this loop finishes, then a new line is created. Row becomes 2. So then this process continues until all 5 rows are printed to the screen. Okay, so what would happen if we would change row maybe to 2? So we'll change that to 2 and then recompile. So Control F5. And then now we can see that there's only 2 rows now. Okay, so now we're ready to do our first right triangle. So go ahead and close this out. It's going to be very similar to this first nested for loop. So let's go ahead and start that. Just press enter a couple times. Give you a little bit of space. First thing we want to do is we want to space out our shapes. So we'll insert a new inline, and then we'll go ahead and begin our outer loop first. So that'll be 4 int row equal to 0. Row is going to be less than or equal to 5 this time. semicolon, row plus plus, close the parentheses, open a curly brace, close a curly brace, press enter, and then now we'll type our for loop inside this loop here. So then that'll be for, open parentheses, int star is going to be set to 0 initially, and then this time our condition is going to be while star is less than row, then semicolon, star plus plus, close the parentheses, and enter, open the curly brace, close the curly brace, and then inside here we need our statement, which is cout, the insertion operator, our string, in this case is an asterisk, terminate it. Then after this for loop runs, then we want a new line, but that new line is inside this for loop here. So this is a little different than the previous code, because instead of star being less than 5, now star, while star is less than row initially starts at 0, but it's going to be incremented each time the outer loop runs. So in the beginning, star is 0 and row is 0. In this case, 0 is not less than 0. So the first time this loop won't run, or the inner loop won't run. Once row becomes 1, star is at 0. So is 0 less than 1? Yes, it is. So then we'll print out 1 asterisk. And then star is incremented. So then 1 is not less than 1 anymore. So then this loop will end. Then we'll get an inline, and that'll be the top of the right triangle, the first asterisk. So let's go ahead and take a look at it. So go ahead and press Control F5. Okay. So here we have the top of the triangle. The next time the loop runs, row will be at 2. So then star is at 0. So is 0 less than 2? Yes, it is. So then it'll print out an asterisk. Then star becomes 1. So is 1 less than row, which is now 2? Yes, it is. So it'll print out another asterisk. Okay, so to visualize this a little bit easier, we can use a truth table. So initially, row starts at 0. Is row less than or equal to 5? We're evaluating this condition here. In this case, yes, it is. So yes. Now we go into the next loop. Is star is at 0. So then the next condition we need to verify is this one here. Star is less than row. In this case, 0 is not less than 0. So then this becomes no. So then because this condition is not true, then this loop doesn't run. Then we do our inline. So the first time, nothing is printed. Okay, so then we start over with with this loop here on the outer loop, so the outer loop now, row is now 1. So is 1 less than or equal to 5? Yes. And then star is reset to 0. So is 1 less than or equal to 0? Is star less than or equal to 0? The answer is yes. So then, because of that, then star is incremented by 1. So now is star less than row? The answer is no. So then the loop ends. So because we only had one yes, we only have one asterisk. So then if we get rid of this, now row is at 2. Is 2 less than or equal to 5? The answer is yes. Star is at 0 again. So then is 0 less than 2? Yes. So then star is incremented by 1, is updated by 1. And 1 is also less than 2. So then yes. So then star becomes 2. Is 2 less than 2? No. So now that gives us the 2 asterisks. So then get rid of this. Now row's at 3. Is 3 less than or equal to 5? Yes. So then star is at 0. So then this condition is true. That is true as well. This is true. This is not true. So now we have the 3 asterisks. Get rid of this. Row's at 4. The answer is yes to this one. This is 0. Yes. 1. Yes. 2. Yes. Is 3 less than 4? Yes. Is 4 less than 4? No. And then the final condition, well actually is right before the final. So then this is going to be 5. So is 5 less than or equal to 5? Yes. Star is at 0. And then 0 is less than 5. Yes. That's 1. Yes. 2. Yes. 3. Yes. 4. Yes. And then 5. No. So now we have 5 asterisks. Then row is 6. Is 6 less than or equal to 5? No. So then this outer loop finally terminates. Okay, so now we're ready to create our last triangle. This time it's going to be pointing down instead of pointing up like the last one. So to do that, again, let's go ahead and insert a line. Make sure you don't have your cap locks on. Stream insertion operator. Okay, now we're ready to begin our last nested for loop. So that'll be for int row set to 0 while row is less than or equal to 5, and our update statement will be row plus plus, close the parentheses, open a curly brace, close the curly brace. Now we need the inner loop. This time it's going to be 4 int star, but instead of it being at 0, we're going to start it at 5 instead, because initially we want 5 asterisks all the way to until it becomes 1 and then 0. So star equals 5, while star this time is greater than row, and we want to decrement the star instead of incrementing it. So instead of star plus plus, it'll be star minus minus. Then our statement, cout asterisk semicolon, and then outside the inner loop we want to insert a line. Yeah, so this is different from the last one, because here in the inner loop we're starting at 5, whereas before we started at 0. This time our condition is while star is greater than row, then star minus minus. So let's go ahead and run this. So that would be Control F5. And now we see that we have 5 asterisks initially, then 4, then 3, then 2, then 1. So we can see here that as row increases, the number of stars decreases.